Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the BE-ST Scholarship Programme webinar. My name is Kay Keenan, and I am the Programme Manager of the Built Environment Innovation Master Scholarship Fund. Every year, we fund up to 20 postgraduate students who are currently studying an MSc, Masters in a Built Environment related subject. Most of you on the webinar today will be accepted on this year's programme. Today is an opportunity for you to learn more about the programme and ask any questions. The agenda for today is quite straightforward. We will run through the timeline of the programme, explaining how the funding works, and discuss the industry project we ask you to work on as part of your dissertation work. Today, we will also be joined by McAdam, a former student who was on the programme last year, Professor Vikki McCall from Stirling University, who engages with the programme and is the programme leader of housing studies, Alan Morrison from Morrisons Construction, and Chris from LocoHomes. But firstly, before we start, let me introduce to you BE-ST and who we are.
Okay, if you just end that one and go on to the next slide, it might be best. Yep, thank you.
Thank you. So BE-ST was formerly known as Construction Scotland Innovation Centre. Formed in 2014, we are one of a family of now 4 innovation centres who are funded by the Scottish Government, Scottish Funding Council, Highlands and Islands Enterprise and Scottish Enterprise. Each innovation centre is focused on delivering innovation within a particular sector. So BE-ST, we focus on built environment and construction. We have Data Lab over in Edinburgh who look at data, and DHI, Digital Health Institute, who are based at Strathclyde University looking at digital health. BE-ST stands for Built Environment Smarter Transformation. And our, sorry, the things are going really fast. I'll go back. Every year, right, I'll just stop that, wait a minute. I think it's actually on, I'm going too fast. So who is BE-ST? So we are an innovation centre and we're based just outside Glasgow. We have a factory in Hamilton, just across from the UWS University. Our identity is we focus on seeing ourselves as the launchpad to zero carbon built environment. Our vision is to build a better built environment that delivers inclusive and sustainable economic, social and environmental impact. And our mission and everything that we do is all about the focus to accelerate the built environment's transition to zero carbon. How we do this is our strategy by providing the connections, the infrastructure and the culture that's needed to solve the sector's most pressing challenges. So now that you've been accepted on the Masters MSc Scholarship Programme, the work that you'll be doing with us should encompass some of the core values that we've discussed here today. So we see ourselves, how are we going to achieve net zero, and it's by being collaborative, being progressive, greener, more innovative, smarter, but also being unexpected. One of the strongest things that enable us to deliver the projects that we do is our connected ecosystem. So we see ourselves as working in the centre, working between industry, academia and public sector. And whilst you're on the programme, you will have the opportunity to connect with us and connect to our wider ecosystem, which is made up of those who work in academia, in the public sector and industry. We see ourselves as unlocking value, and how do we do it, i.e. what is it that we do at BE-ST? We basically work we take on projects that involve our innovation factory. We also work in collaborative projects with universities and industry, and we have a whole skills programme which looks at the future skills workforce. Our Accelerate to Zero programme is the programme that we're focusing on for the next 5 years, which is a zero carbon programme which will look at transforming the built environment. How are we going to go about doing this? Well, we work within 4 specific areas. We work in digital transformation, modern methods of construction, retrofit and sustainability. And within those 4 areas, encompassing all of that, is a zero carbon skills focus around culture change and also supply chain transformation. So before we move on to the actual Masters MSc Scholarship Programme, first of all, I want to introduce you to our first speaker today. It's Professor Vikki McCall. Professor Vikki McCall is actually a programme leader of housing studies at Stirling University, and last year we had some students from Stirling University, and I believe we have a few other students on the scholarship programme this year. So welcome, Vikki. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Kate. Indeed, they should be on this call now. So, hello, everyone. Yes, I'm a professor in social policy at the University of Stirling, but I've been teaching on the Housing Studies programme for over a decade now, nurturing our new talent into the housing sector to look at the key issues that BE-ST are trying to tackle as well, which is net zero carbon. And the students at the moment are doing a module on sustainable communities and so on, because this is the big challenge of our time. And if the housing sector aren't prepared for it, then what are we what are we doing? And we're really grateful to BE-ST support in Education Strand. And Kay, thank you so much for supporting our students all the way through, because these have really made a difference to the educational experience and the experience of our internship students in particular. I had the benefit of being part of the professionalisation review by the UK government on housing education and professionalisation in the sector. And it's an interesting dynamic where there's not been too much attention being placed on the education spheres in these areas in the past. But when it goes wrong in housing, it really goes wrong in housing. And there's a lot of interest around really key areas such as damp and mould, carbon zero, energy efficiency, and of course we have the experience of Grenfell when it is about the fabric of housing, the delivery of housing and the governance of housing. So how do we get that right is actually attracting talent into this sector and supporting really amazing innovations and transformations and thinking through all of these key issues. The challenge in the sector is often, and you'll all have heard of it, is people fall into this through different routes, and that's a real strength actually for us, in that we get a lot of different angles, different lenses, and a diversity of people that work in our sector looking and working in these areas. But it's also not a clear route or journey into it for people to take from school, from undergraduate to postgraduate. And we're one of the very few now that try to link real experiences for undergraduates coming to postgraduate with actual industry partners, because we've found that it's actually, you can learn a lot of theory, but until you start to apply it, that's when it really comes alive. And our experience of this programme has done just that. And we had 3 students last year on BE-ST scholarships, and they did really exciting things. And my learning from that was that the road to carbon zero is wide and varied, and you can take so many angles at it, from the social sciences, from business, from lots of different ways going in the same direction. We had really interesting and innovative projects looking at the link between sustainability and tenant sustainability. We had interesting projects that looked noise reduction and what is the transformations in our homes that are kind of going to carbon zero, but also reducing antisocial behaviour. I mean, these are left-wing things that are all on the road, but part of the jigsaw puzzle to getting to the end result. So I would have said the BE-ST scholarships allow for that flexibility, innovation, creativity, and are a really unique opportunity for students and for the partners that we work for to gather evidence and have somebody that's passionate and enthusiastic in the road to applying the big challenges and opportunities of our time. So we're really grateful for that, and I've had a really great experience. And to show results, one of our students graduated in November after the BE-ST scholarship as the best in her cohort. So I just want to say that the work coming out is really high quality, and I think having students that see the wider picture, the wider networks and the wider connections between industry, education, housing associations, local authorities, the policy landscape, is just becoming more and more important because it's a very complex landscape, and this is one of the very few support mechanisms that are out there for students to see that. So I would argue, if we're looking in the Scottish context and the policy landscape here, you know, housing to 2040 and all of the big ambitions that are around what we're expected to produce, provide and support, then the key caveat to that, the key foundation to that, is have the people to do it. So this is about supporting people to do it, the students to do it, and in supporting the rising stars that we have that will be the leaders of the future as well, and building their capacity. So our experience has been incredibly positive, and we can only just say thank you to BE-ST for supporting our students in the past and the present. and I think as a unique thing, we need to nurture that and support that, and the students that are on it. So thank you everybody, and thank you, Kate. That's all I really wanted to say.
Thanks, Vikki. If some of the students who are on today that are on the programme, they might be just coming to new, and their programme leaders at the university they're at have never, engaged with the programme before. So I suppose it's really giving them that understanding that, the industry challenge, it doesn't mean that their dissertation topic has to be very different from what they'd imagined. It's really, what you were saying, Vikki, about connecting your academic topic with what's actually happening, particularly within the Scottish landscape, and I suppose in the wider, the wider world, the issues around, carbon that we have at the moment. But I suppose, if students are sitting here today and they're listening to this, what advice would you give them in terms of how to approach their industry, challenge, if they're going to incorporate that into their dissertation, as someone that does do that anyway in the work that you do in Stirling? So what would you say, like for them, the best way to go about that?
Absolutely. So I would have said, don't narrow down your thinking, because actually the magic happens when we're starting to think about it from different angles and different topics. I would have said, think of the challenge and the people at the end of it, and the people results, and think about the outcomes. And the BE-ST scholarships are open in that way, in terms of the cultural impact, the societal impact, as well as looking at kind of bricks and mortar and actual kind of innovations. So what our experience has been is that the opportunities are wider than maybe you first realise, and it's okay to think creatively around the topic, and Kay, and you've been very supportive of that, because it's that space of things we've not thought about before, isn't it, in the opportunity space in working with our industry partners.
And I think it's important, Vikki, what you were saying, to understand that policy is important in this area at the moment around innovation and around us reaching these targets. So, if there's people that are on the call today that are doing their MSc and they're thinking, well, how will that, how will that align with, a built environment focused topic? It really is, as you say, being creative and being open and understanding. I suppose it's really looking at the challenges that are out there first, isn't it? And then trying to understand how what you're doing within your MSc or Masters is working towards looking at those challenges.
And in many ways, all roads lead back to the built environment. If you're looking at accessibility, well, you're talking about spaces and the built environment again, and how we need to amend it. If you're looking at in the home and at warm, safe, healthy homes, all of that connects as well. It's something we all need. And it's something that everybody has in common as well across society. All roads leads to this topic, so it just needs a little bit sometimes of thinking through in terms of the linkages, because they do link in the background.
Thanks, Vikki. Thank you for coming today. If anyone has any questions regarding, their industry topic or, challenges, there is, you can put it in the chat box, and we will have a Q&A session towards the end of the webinar today. But thanks, Vikki. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. So now I'm going to talk through the timeline of the programme and run through what you have to do in order to meet the deadlines. And I know many of you have questions around funding. So. Oh, right, I'll just end that one. So most of you right now would have been told by myself that you have been accepted on the programme, and you should have been sent over what we call an assurance letter. If you haven't had this, make sure then get in touch with me after the webinar today or in the next few days to make sure that you get that. That will have all your terms and conditions in it. So if you read through, it explains to you exactly what we expect from you on the programme. Now, we don't expect, it's not a huge amount of work on top of the work you're already doing for your MSc or your Masters. What we're really looking for is when you're doing your dissertation topic, look at some of the challenges around net zero, around innovation, around sustainability that we're facing right now in Scotland and, wider across the globe, and look at how you can base your MSc dissertation topic on something that's a real life industry challenge. So at the moment, we're looking at January or February time. We want you to start thinking about an industry partner. If you don't have an industry partner in mind, and by industry partner, we don't mean just someone from industry. It could be a local housing association, it could be a local authority, it could be public sector. But what we really want from you in this programme is to look outside of academia and look at real life industry challenges and incorporate that within your dissertation topic. What I then do is round about March time, we then get you to connect with an industry partner once you've identified one. We then send over towards the end of April an initial project overview, which we want you to fill in, and it's just basically you giving us your idea of what it is you're going to be looking at, an industry problem within your dissertation topic and who your industry partner is. So we expect that to be completed at the start of May, and then if you are a September student, then at the end of September, when you finally complete your MSc Masters, we expect you then to complete the final project overview, which we then make it as a case study. At that point, when you finish your MSc or your Masters, we will then pay the university £6,530 or whatever it is that your fees have been. So if your fees are less than that, or then we will pay. The money that we pay, the 6,530, can only be used for fees. So unfortunately, it can't be used for other means. So your industry project. So we're going to hear from a former student who worked in an industry project, and we're also going to hear from two people who are very much interested in taking on students on industry-led topics this year. So But before that, we'll just run through what we're looking at. So an industry-based research project. So as I said, although we're talking about it as industry, what we mean by that is you're not working within your academic area at your university. So with Vikki, the students that worked with Vikki last year, they had projects with local housing associations. We've had students from Dundee in the past who work with local authorities. We've worked with Network Rail if they were engineers. But many times we also have those that just work with an industry partner. So you must, and this is where it's really important, the topic that you look at must be built environment related, looking at innovation, sustainability, or zero carbon solutions. So consider it a real life challenge where there's a knowledge gap. And you know, if you have an industry partner, they can provide you with the industry challenge, or they can provide you with support, or they can ask you to work in a specific area that they're very interested in. We've found in the past few years that many industry partners are really interested in students looking at low carbon solutions around embodied carbon, or you know, just looking at the wider field of sustainability and construction. And as we mentioned, we will send out an initial project overview to you round about the end of April, beginning of May, and you must have that completed. And then when you finish your studies, the final project overview will be handed in at the end. Okay. So the project overview requirements. So what we need from your project overview, the initial one, we need to know the details of your topic, who your industry partner is, and the deadlines of when you are going to complete your dissertation and when you're due to graduate, because that's where we'll set up the finance with your university as well. So those are the three things that we ask you to be working on from now until May. And then obviously by that time when you're working on your dissertation module, then if you then, when on completed, give us the final project overview at the end. So now we're going to hear, now we're going to get an opportunity to hear from a student who was on the programme last year. So Chloe McAdam was a former student at Glasgow Caledonian University. She studied, quantity surveying, and is here today to talk to you about the programme. Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Hi. Can you see me? Yep.
Yep.
Oh, happened there. Hi, Chloe. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So, Chloe, the students are on the programme today, and they're basically interested in finding out more about, you know, the student experience, how you go about finding an industry partner. So, I mean, if you could just tell us more about, you know, everything that you were like about your experience last year, how you got on.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as Kay said, my name's Chloe. I'm a graduate quantity surveyor. I studied my master's at Glasgow Caledonian University last year, and I was fortunate enough to have a place on the BE-ST Scholarship. So I'm just going to run through a bit of my journey throughout that process and the opportunities and benefits that I thought it brought to me. So I know that Kay had mentioned a lot of you will have already been accepted, which is amazing. But anyone who is still yet to apply, the application process is not scary at all. It's actually really simple, and it does give you an opportunity to tell the BE-ST team a little bit about what you're passionate about and what your goals are. So it's a good starting point when you're starting your studies to kind of get an idea of what you want to achieve out of your course. So once I was accepted on that, I found that I was thinking about my dissertation topic very early on in my course, which is something that I found took a lot of pressure off me when it did come to my third trimester, because as you'll find out, or you may already know, dissertation is very much student-led, so you're expected to go out and come up with your own topic and your own data. So thinking about that very early on in your course takes a lot of the pressure off, in my opinion. So following on from being accepted, I then had a chat with Kay about some industry partners. And I was quite certain that I wanted to focus my dissertation on Passive House, just because leading up to starting my course, I had heard a lot about it on the news, on LinkedIn. You know, it's a really emerging low carbon building technique, especially in Scotland in public sector buildings. So through discussions with Kay, we kind of pinpointed some good industry partners that would be able to support me on that. And I actually reached out to Morrison Construction myself, to Alan, I think, who you'll hear from shortly. He's the low carbon manager. And through Alan, I was actually able to meet a previous student that had also done the BE-ST Scholarship, who also worked for Morrison. So it was a great opportunity for him to share his experiences with me as I was kind of at the start of my journey. And yeah, so through those chats with Alan and Finn, we were able to identify some projects that Morrison had worked on that were passive house projects, where they was able to give me data on the carbon emissions from these projects, and also other data that would support that as well. So yeah, the support I received from Alan and Finn was absolutely amazing. When I took my idea to my dissertation supervisor, he actually said it was a very unique idea, and he often found that when you do go on the BE-ST Scholarship, they produce very unique dissertations. And yeah, so following that, I submitted my dissertation and the result was amazing. I learned so much during that journey, and it was also not only that, I was able to network. I think being on this scholarship is a great talking point when you meet new people in the industry, especially for us at the start of our journey, and we're also going into developmental roles, so it is important that we network and branch out, and I found that this scholarship was such a great talking point. Not only that, but at interviews as well, so I was able to say that I was on the scholarship and talk about it, and everyone that I've spoke to about it found it really interesting. So it's also something that you can put on your CV, something I'm really proud of as well. So I've learned so much, and through that I actually now work for Morrison Construction, and I am enrolled for training days with BE-ST coming up this year. So it's just helping me develop in my role, even after I've completed the scholarship, which is amazing. And yeah, my whole experience was really, really positive and provides so many opportunities for me. So I'd like to thank the team at BE-ST and Kay for all your support.
Thanks, Chloe. So if, you know, there'll be students sitting there listening to you just now, and they'll be thinking, wow, that's an amazing journey and it couldn't have went any better, because, you know, you worked with your industry partner, you're now, you know, you're working with them. And I suppose that's kind of the point of the scholarship, because it's really about like having talent stay in Scotland and making sure that when people are working, you know, within the built environment, that they're not then getting their masters or their MSc and then they're not going to England and they're not maybe moving, you know, to Europe or whatever and working over there. We really do want to retain talent in Scotland. So Chloe, if, you know, I said the same to Vikki earlier on, there's probably students sitting there and they're thinking, right, how did Chloe go about that? And one of the things, you know, that we can get from listening to you is you really did, you know, have that, you know, get up and go to reach out and to, you know, speak to the network. So, you know, I suppose, what would you say in terms of the first step of going about doing that for those that maybe are sitting there saying, well, I'm not a quantity surveyor and I'm not, like, low carbon's not the route I'm going down. So I suppose it really is just like thinking imaginatively about, you know, the industry partners, isn't it, and who's out there.
Yeah, I think the first thing would be to look at BE-ST's values, as you mentioned earlier, and see which one of the four you kind of fit into or what your direction is. And then from there, you kind of start at a wider stance, and then you can kind of narrow it into where you think you would like to head. So you can look at previous projects that other students have done and tailor that to something niche that you might have an interest in. For me, obviously, I knew Passive House through just my own research. It is such a big thing just now. It's in the news with the Scottish Government and everything like that. So I kind of knew that that was what I wanted to go down. So then I started looking to see, well, what construction companies in Scotland actually use the Passive House technique. And that's when I was able to identify Morrison Construction. And then you just do a bit of research, you know, who is their low carbon team, because most larger construction companies these days will have a dedicated low carbon team. So that's kind of who you're wanting to reach out to, just to get some information at the first instance, and then take it from there. But yeah, definitely do a little bit of research into the values of BE-ST and see what kind of piques your interest and take it from there.
Thanks, Chloe. And I suppose what you know, the journey that you've been on whilst you were doing your MSc is actually what, you know, a lot of people end up having to do when they've completed it, when they're actually looking about applying for jobs. So it's almost like you were a step ahead in terms of like finding out what industry you're doing whilst you're still studying, instead of like a lot of students, a lot of graduates will wait till they've finished and then start looking at that. So you're almost like ahead of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I felt like I was 10 steps ahead just by signing up to the scholarship, by being introduced to BE-ST in the first place, because you guys do so many projects. There is something that will interest everyone, I think. So yeah, I definitely felt like I had a sort of an advantage there, which I'm very fortunate, and I'm really proud of that. So I would say that, yeah, even when I came to my interviews, because I know that everyone probably here might not be thinking about jobs yet, but it will come around the corner, and it is a great discussion point to start off with. And yeah, really, I always found that whoever I was talking to, it really piqued their interest and started a good conversation. So it is definitely a good way to put yourself ahead.
Thanks. And Chloe, you've been an absolute excellent, you know, excellent student on the programme, excellent ambassador for BE-ST, and you know, just listening to your journey, we can see that you've definitely had that drive in order to like make that step from academic MSc into the world of work. So yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. So now we're going to have the opportunity to watch a short video where we're going to see other students who have been on the programme. So this is an opportunity to see students. Some of them have focused on partnerships that have been far more technical based around engineering. So if you're sitting on the webinar today and you're from a much more engineering background, you'll see some of the projects that they've been involved with on the BE-ST Scholarship in the past as well. So before we hear from some of our industry partners on the programme, I just want to remind you, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask any of the panellists, or any questions that you have about the programme, please put them in the chat box and we'll answer them towards the end of the webinar. So now we're going to hear from Alan and Chris, who have been industry partners on the programme previously and want to be industry partners in the programme this year. So Chris actually works for LocoHomes, which is a Glasgow-based cooperative, which is working in the retrofit space around energy efficiency and solutions in that area. So welcome, Chris, and welcome, Alan. Hi.
Okay.
Hi. So Chris, I believe you have some slides, is that right? Yeah.
Chris, you're just on mute. If you can just hover over your face and it should come up, allowing you to unmute.
Right.
There you are.
Right. Wow. I'm no longer muted. So I'm going to share my screen, or can you let me share my screen, Danielle?
Should be with you now.
Great. So thanks very much for the introduction, Kate. I'm just going to say a few things about what we do at Local Home Retrofit, and something about myself and the nature of the projects that we'd be keen to have Masters students come and join us to do. So yeah, we are Glasgow's community-led retrofit intermediary. So we're a climate action organisation founded in 2021 to address climate change. We are addressing existing homes, which are about 20% of Scotland's emissions contribution to climate change. And the Scottish Government has a target of getting 1 million homes off fossil fuels and onto zero direct emissions heating by 2030. And there's 2,000 days in which to do that. And short, we're not anywhere near the pace that we need to achieve on that. But as well as getting zero emissions heating, like heat pumps into homes, we also need to address demand reduction, to address the total system costs, so insulation and air tightness and ventilation, to have much lower demands for energy. And we have to address climate adaptation because of the expected impacts of climate change that are already coming and are already here, regardless of what progress we make on net zero. So, but retrofit is it's expensive for homeowners, and we're focusing on owner-occupiers. It's very complicated. Homeowners find it's difficult to know what to do and who to trust in terms of which measures to adopt. It's risky, things can go wrong, and it's with people's home, it's it's very important. Their number one asset, and it is the place they live, so it's very important to avoid adverse impacts of retrofit. And it's difficult to find contractors because there is a capacity and skills shortage, and it's difficult to recognise good contractors. So what we do is provide an independent advice service, which is the core of which is a whole home plan. So homeowners can come to us, and instead of spending hours and hours and hours online doing their own internet research or simply responding to whatever ads they see on Facebook or whatever, they come to us and get an appropriate sequenced and prioritized plan to address their goals, whether that's being more comfortable, having a healthier home, a warmer home, reducing their bills, or reducing their environmental impact, all of those things. So I'm a certified passive house consultant. I did my retrofit training through AECB, which is a fantastic organization, also partnering with BE-ST. And we align the design of our service to PASS 2035, which is the British standard for good practice for the customer journey for retrofit. We're a cooperative, so we're non-profit. We're owned by our customers and their suppliers. So both, we're an intermediary, so our households, our members and owners of the co-op, and installers like heat pump installers and service providers like surveyors and architects own the company and drive the governance through an elected board. We now have a staff of 6 as of this week. So we're growing. And the provocation for us is what if the climate transition and retrofit of our homes and streets were designed, owned and governed by the people who live there? So and the reason we tie into this this question is because there's a big trust issue. To literally have people open the door to invasive changes in their homes, they need to trust the people involved in making those changes. So what if we could have the big changes on a neighbourhood scale led and governed by the people who live there? That's what we're trying to do. So we participate in innovation with 2 finance projects with the UK government, a digital project funded by the Scottish government, and a technology provider. And we're looking at neighbourhood scale deployment of retrofit with Innovate UK funding. So we're very much involved with not just service delivery, building community, but also innovation. And here's a few ideas for projects for your master's dissertation. Projects have to have a commercial basis. We don't think there's a great deal of need at the moment for driving progress in retrofit for ivory tower research and development. Yes, there's scope for that in some places, but what we need is commercializable, I think that's a word, commercializable ideas that advance what we're doing. So process improvement in surveying and coordination, so making it more cost effective, improving the customer experience, and taking better stock of the environmental impact of our recommendations and their implementation with local installers. We also want to look at installation methods that are suitable for owner-occupiers who are in situ and can't really vacate the property for big changes such as air tightness or wall insulation, and need to take a stepwise approach. So how can that work better than it is at the moment? It's a big barrier to homeowners taking deep retrofit measures into their homes. We need to look at scalable finance, and that's about evaluating what we're doing and selling the co-benefits in terms of health impacts, as well as carbon, and also things like economic and community wealth building, impacts on the economy. How can we sell that as something that public departments or philanthropic funders would be interested in supporting? So please do contact me, Chris at LocoHome, if you'd like to find out more. Look us up on social media, and we're very much looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, another opportunity to, if you're not sure of industry partners, then Chris, is very, very keen to engage. And another industry partner we have today is Alan. Alan is from Morrisons Construction, and he is their low carbon manager. Alan has been a great partner of the BE-ST Scholarship Master's Programme and has worked with previous students. So welcome, Alan. Thank you for coming today.
No problem. Thanks, Kay. Yeah, so as Kay said, and Chloe's given us a good introduction as well. We're a large tier 1 contractor in Scotland. We're part of a wider UK company called Galliford Try. And we've seen, certainly in the last 3 to 5 years, a massive explosion in low carbon, low energy, net zero buildings that we are building, certainly in the public sector. And that's been driven primarily by the sort of Scottish Government's funding mechanisms for local councils through the Scottish Future Trust, SFT. So we've seen a huge uptake, as Chloe mentioned, on passive house projects, for example, that we're working on, which is creating a really big shift in us in terms of the skill set that we need to deliver upon, and the wider supply chain that we need to work with as well. So we've, as Kay said, we've sort of formed a partnership working with BE-ST over the last few years, and initially that started looking at how can we develop technical solutions to deliver passive house at scale, because passive house came as a fairly residential scale mechanism initially, but now it's really exploded into much larger commercial. So we've been working closely with BE-ST, which has been really, really fruitful for us, and it's formed part of the BE-ST training program as well. And we're now developing that into creating another facility internally where we're able to do physical air tests and thermal tests on different details at scale. And the idea is that we'll be able to sort of push that out into industry and our supply chain, and also get that supply chain input into us to help then inform the design teams as well. So what we've really seen in the last few years is a really big emphasis on green skills, if you want to use that term, which is around about digital construction. There's a real push on digitization and building the building digitally in the first instance. There's a big drive on quality as well, which BE-ST are obviously got a lot of focus on in terms of the upskilling part of that, and that's a huge focus for us as well. In-use building performance monitoring as well, that we're getting a lot of clients paying for all this, things like passive house and really low energy buildings, but how do we then demonstrate and manage the clients and hold their hands when they're in occupation to make sure they're actually getting the benefits of that and being able to demonstrate the benefits as well. And things like new components and construction techniques like mechanical ventilation. So MVHR units are, you know, having the skills and be able to work with them as well. So there's quite a broad range. And what as a sort of large tier one that we're looking to do, and I think Chris touched upon it really well, is that we are not looking for totally blue sky thinking. It's how do we really refine and get the benefits of quality, and how do we demonstrate that the benefits of quality, implementation of modern methods of construction, design standardization, how can we demonstrate that reduces waste, and you know the benefits that'll have on embodied carbon as well, and then how the benefits of digital coordination as well. How can we demonstrate efficiencies? So I think a real big part of my role is how do we demonstrate value in terms of the low carbon side of things? How can we demonstrate value looking at embodied carbon? How do we demonstrate value looking at low energy? Because I think there's a perception that it's just costs more, and you know that the client's going to have to accept that. But I think totally the reverse. I think it's an opportunity to really drive efficiency and drive standardization and offer value for money. So anything in that kind of area, and as Chloe said, you know, Passive House is a great tool to do that, and the low energy buildings that we are working on as well. So anything around about quality, modern methods of construction, design for manufacture, digitization, and then how all that links together for overall efficiency is really interesting to us and myself. So I mean, my contact details will be available via BE-ST as well if anybody wants to get in contact with me.
Okay, so thanks, Alan. That's really helpful. And again, just to, you know, going back to what Chloe was saying, Chloe did work with Alan and she did work with Morrisons, and now, you know, she's went straight into a job working there as well. So, you know, the benefits of working with an industry partner is actually, you know, it's a pathway into a career if you want to move that way. Yeah.
And sorry, Kay, I was just I've got a low carbon graduate as well that works for me, Finn Caldwell, who went through the scholarship as well 2-3 years ago as well. So Morrisons Construction have now had, you know, two graduates come through the program as well. So that it's been really good for us and obviously for Chloe and Finn as well to go through that.
Thanks. So have we got any questions from any of the audience, any of the students? Any questions? There's nothing coming up in the panel just now. So both Chris and Alan have shared their email, and I'm happy to share their email address after this as well, and we can share the slides. So if, again, going through the timeline, at this moment in time, you should start thinking about your industry challenge and your industry partner. So if this is something, you know, working with Chris or working with Alan, or even, you know, getting in touch with both, something, then, you know, I would suggest you actually do it. So thank you, Alan, thank you, Chris, thank you, Chloe, and thank you, Vikki, for coming along today. Any questions then after the webinar, please get in touch. But once again, welcome to the webinar, the scholarship this year, and we all look forward to working with you. Thanks again.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Kay.